Hey guys, welcome to the studio, to the A studio that is under full construction, building a room within a room. Unfortunately, not starting today with the construction, but just 2 more days, so definitely tune in if you're interested to see how I build it. And since I'll be really busy with the construction for at least 2 months, I want to finish songs beforehand as much as possible. Today working on a song called Ashes. It's a really amazing song with vocals that I absolutely love, but today I need to process them to get them sit right in the song, in the mix, make them nice and wide and lush and kind of go with the flow of the song. So today's episode will be all about how I process my vocals. So let's head over to the B studio and get started. It's plain to see that we're lost in the ashes. You just heard the song I'm working on today in the intro. I already like it. The vocal is at a good state, but there's still room for improvement. And always when you're working with vocals, the source material is key. If you have a shitty recording, if you have a shitty singer-songwriter, there is no way really to fix it. Yes, you can fix timing and pitch, but pronunciation and like the actual voice, if it sounds good or not, there's no way to change it. So let me loop up a little section of the vocal and start with like the typical processing for vocals.
I communicate every day, but you don't hear me.
So first is definitely always with vocals getting the dynamics right. So using a compressor. A compressor is basically just making sure that the quiet parts, or actually that the loud parts get squashed down and then the entire signal made loud again, which results in having the quiet parts louder. Hope this makes sense. It's basically the same as a singer on stage. You see them a lot. If they start singing really loud, they move the mic away, get more distance, less volume so that everyone in the audience doesn't become deaf. So this kind of movement of removing the mic and controlling your volume is basically what a compressor does. And like how fast you do it, the movement, that's kind of attack and release, and this way you can shape the transients of a song and change the vibe of it, the groove of it, if you use it on an entire song. But here on vocals, it's mostly just to make sure that the imperfect stuff of the singer, they might have moved in a vocal booth, they might have like turned to the side to just equal everything out. And I just recently got a new plugin called Vocal Compressor. It's just like $8, which is very inexpensive. That is specifically made for compressing vocals in 3 stages. By the way, if you're interested, I'll link it down below. The first stage is controlling the peaks. So let's maybe play the vocal and put everything here again onto like the initial settings.
I communicate every day, but you don't hear me.
Now, first up, catching the peaks.
I communicate every day, but you don't hear me.
And you can really hear if you hit it really hard, it gain reduces, that's like the middle one, and it's pressing against the loudest part in the vocal.
I communicate every day.
This is of course a very extreme setting just to showcase it. And compression is really hard to hear, especially for beginners, because it's not an EQ where you hear the frequencies are cut away or boosted. It's not a reverb that you can spot and hear. It's not a delay, like very obvious effects. Compression is by far, I think, like the most complicated to really grasp. And it's partially like just technical, like controlling the dynamics, and partially controlling like flavor and groove and these kind of things. We'll get to that later. Let's maybe first bounce out this extreme setting so that you can compare the waveforms. So as you can see, it reduces the volume, obviously, but let's maybe normalize it to compare them even better. Now you can actually see that it's more squashed, like you can compare no compression and compression, And you can see that like the difference between like things that are sticking out and that are more embedded, that it becomes more equal. The vocal got compressed, heavily compressed. Like for example, this section right here, in the original it's a very smooth fade out. Here it got pulled up quite a bit and we have a way steeper curve. Now let's actually delete that because we don't need it that heavily compressed. We just want to catch the peaks. That's also why this first one's just called peaks.
I communicate
We have around 6 dB of gain reduction, which is already quite a bit, so I'll back it off again, just really catching the peaks. And like the slider right here, it doesn't mean a whole lot because it depends on how hard you drive the vocal into the plugin. So just like check the gain reduction meter. That's true for all compression and limiting. Check how much it actually reduces the gain.
I communicate every day.
So we should be now around 4 or 5 dB of gain reduction. And vocals, especially vocals where you record yourself, you can drive them quite hard. Because especially as electronic music producers, we're so used to having samples that are already compressed and like sampling from other records that got even mastered. So it all is already reduced and dynamic. If you record something, you need to compress it way more. For example, on the master of a song, I would just reduce it by 1 or 2 dB of gain reduction. On a vocal, like even 20 dB of gain reduction can still sound really good. And underneath of it is the makeup. So we can now, since all of the loud parts got squashed into the compressor and we reduce this way the loudness, we can make up for it by just like increasing it. This also gives us the possibility to A and B compare it. We can disable the plugin and enable it again.
I communicate every day, but you don't hear me. I communicate every day, but you don't hear me.
It's a little much. I'll back it off again a tiny bit. Because the downside of compressing vocals is everything that is quiet is becoming louder. So breathing is louder, pops, clicks, noise in the background is louder. We can use a gate. Here's one built in to get rid of the noise a little. And for the breathing, we'll use another plugin later. The next one we'll use is the balance, which is actually a parallel compressor. And it lets you fine tweak the difference between the compressed peaks and the not compressed parts. So this is already where we're getting to like the groove and the flavor a little. So let's drive this pretty hard.
I communicate every day, but you don't hear me.
Let's give it a little bit of makeup.
I communicate every day, but you don't hear me.
I think it's very obvious that you can now hear that it sounds more like radio because they also heavily compress vocals. But of course, we also get some issues we'll have to fix later. So the original without the compression sounds a little boring, less radio friendly kind of. Let's again A and B compare them.
I communicate every day, but you don't hear me.
For now, I'll leave it at that. It's a very extreme setting at the moment, but as you can see down here, we have a mix knob so we can dial it down again. And these extreme settings make it easier to hear what you're actually doing. So I love every kind of plugin that has a mix knob. So this way you can like just drive it really hard, know what you're doing and hear it obviously, and then back off a little again. The next one we'll use is flavour. This one right here is more like for saturating a vocal, giving it that analog kind of feel. So let's just test it out.
I communicate every day, but you don't hear me.
Yeah, I think a very obvious change. Again, all of this is not as obvious as using a reverb and all this kind of stuff. Compression is a little harder to hear, but this way we can make it fit better into the entire song because it's more controlled. We control the levels a lot more. And I think I'll dial down the mix to like 80% because I think it's a little much. and the color one also down to maybe 40-50%.
I communicate every day, but you don't hear me.
Yeah, that's really good to continue working on it. The next one then is definitely using some reverb just to bring it alive, make it sound natural. Everything without a reverb sounds very artificial.
I communicate every day, but you don't hear me.
For the reverb, just pick one that sounds nice. Make sure that the decay time is not too long, not too short. This highly depends on what you like and the tempo of the song, the vibe you're going for. And then what I also love is, of course, having a low cut, just to make sure there is no mic rumble or anything in there. This one here, I think, was already low cutted while recording, so there was really nothing, but just as a safety measure, do it again. Right here at just 160 Hertz. And then if you like, you can add delay. That's really, again, depending on the tempo, again, on the style. I like to use it at the very end of a word. If there's like a gap and a lot of space just to fill it out, I like to automate a delay. Here on this one, I actually use a delay that is on the entire time.
I communicate every day, but you don't hear me.
Just because here on this vocal and that kind of part, we don't have doubles, we don't have harmonies, left and right doubles. It's just like a single vocal snippet. And to make it sound a little wider, a little bigger, just a little bit of delay that sits underneath of it to give it like a little more like an open feel to it and a little more vibe. And yeah, that's basically it. That's how you compress vocals, how you process them, at least like the basics. I'll try and make another episode with like how to pitch correct them and to correct the timing, but here it's not necessary, so there's nothing I can really showcase. But once I get shitty vocals again, I'll be happy to share with you how to rescue them. But this one is more about like how to get the compression nailed and right for vocals. I think it's really hard to set up, and it's something you should definitely try and master because it can really bring a vocal alive. Again, if you're interested, like that vocal comp plugin, it's linked down below. And we'll see us tomorrow again for another episode here in the studio. And in 2 days, full constructing of the A Studio. Can't wait.